So yeah, my name is Jeanne. I come from Paris, so my apologies for my accent in advance. But yeah, I'm really, really glad to be here today to speak about how to build a sustainable career in the electronic music industry through the lens of mental health. So I'm here with Sylvia Montello, the CEO from AFEM. Thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure. Delighted to be here.
As well as Tristan Hunt. Hi, thank you for being here as well.
Thank you, welcome.
And Farah Sayed from Beatport.
Thank you for having me.
Amazing. So we're going to see how the impact that coronavirus had on people can impact the way that we work, the way that we see us working in the future, and how these changes can be implemented to the way that we work in the industry, especially regarding the preservation of mental health. So I'm going to start right now by looking at maybe first the importance of talking about mental health in the electronic music industry. So you all contributed to a very interesting report on mental health called Music Connects Us. That surveyed 140 artists from around the world to share their stories in the fight against mental illness and depression, and look at how music can be helpful in that sense. So from this report, to which AFEM contributed, as well as Beatport and other associations such as Arigami, Salad Mode, and others, you said that the world is living a mental health crisis. So could you explain it a bit, what you meant by that, and what part the pandemic took in this crisis?
Happy to take that. So I think it was contextual at the time, where we were in the middle of a crisis, absolutely. I think it's kind of useful maybe to look at it through a contemporary lens now. The report which you touched on, that we work very closely with Beatport on, the Music Connects Us report, was a wonderful initiative to reach out to the industry, to give people an idea of where people were at lots of different levels, from sort of really well-known artists to people that are coming up and moving through the industry in the middle of that crisis of the COVID crisis and the pandemic. We've just had World Mental Health Week, or Mental Health Week certainly in the UK, I think Mental Health Month for a lot of the rest of the world. And the subject this year was loneliness. So one of the key things that came up through this report and the work that we did together was this idea of the loneliness that artists feel touring. So when you're alone as a DJ, you often don't have backline support. There's not the same support that you would have perhaps if you're a band, where you're with your crew and lots of other people and things like that. So this is something that's actually quite germane to our industry, is that artists are often made to feel a lot more alone simply by the way in which they work. And what the pandemic did was suddenly it made us realize how alone we can be, because we weren't able to connect. We weren't able to do these wonderful things, to have our conferences, to go to the clubs, festivals, all of the things that connects us. Music Connects Us was all about that. Beatport did a series called Reconnect, which was, again, all about this idea of bringing people back together. So that's been a sort of fundamental ethos, if you like, behind that sort of work, making sure that people don't feel alone, and that this idea of loneliness is something that affects not just your big name artists and the people we know really well, but actually often everybody in the industry, and that we should all try to be more connected.
Yeah, and just to add to that really quickly, the hashtag was also "You Are Not Alone," and just to give people background in case they don't have context or know what it is, at Beatport, when the pandemic hit, we decided to, like, literally a few weeks later, we decided to start a marathon series of live streams called Reconnect. My colleague Ed Hill, he's incredible. He's got a very long history of live streaming, and to do a marathon of like 36 hours, 40 hours with everybody all around the world, in their homes, because they can't do it in the clubs, was really challenging, but incredible. And so we knew that this series was going to be we hoped it would be something that would be successful, and it definitely was. So when November hit of 2020, I believe it was, we decided to do one that was mental health focused, because we're still in the peak of a pandemic, and we really wanted to kind of combined music and also spoken discussion and breathwork sessions. It was the first time on our Twitch channel that we had combined music and discussion, and just seeing people's messages, like fans in the Twitch channel, because we were actually Twitch's one of their premium music partners at the time. So we were on homepage placement, and a lot of people were tuning in from all over, and just seeing people say, you know, this is like saving me. Thank you for doing this. I didn't know Beatport cared about these kind of things. This is really incredible. It just meant a lot to us. And so we wanted to kind of collect data from this, which is why we decided to push out a survey. So it was actually 140 of not just artists, but fans, industry peers, managers, you know, everybody kind of. So that data was super valuable. And I'm so happy that we did that, because we definitely saw the, you know, the touch points and the connections were that people were very, very lonely, but that music connected everybody. So that's kind of why the brand is called Reconnect, because it's reconnecting everybody all over the world.
And to the point as well about how the global pandemic really affected the electronic music sector in particular, and on that theme of loneliness, you know, a really important part of the work of a DJ or a producer is to get the feedback loop of being able to see the reaction of the crowd to what they're playing or to the tune that they've made. And obviously during the pandemic, one of the only things that producers could do is still actually make the music at home. But again, that's quite a lonely, you know, can be a very lonely situation, because they're often working on their own. And even if they did have collaborators, they weren't allowed to actually be in the same room with them. So that was one thing. But then they couldn't actually then see an audience engaging with their production. So the only outlet they had was to make music, but the normal outlet for how that music would then actually connect with an audience and then reconnect emotionally with them was taken away. And in the case of the DJs, obviously, they could still technically play a DJ set, but they would have to be doing it from their living room and live streaming it to to the ether, to not being able to see people's faces and responses. The responses that they could see would be in chats. But again, it was that kind of that distance between themselves and the audience that they feed from, as well as obviously the fact that their livelihoods were affected because they weren't being paid for live streams in the way that they would be paid for gigs. So it was really a kind of a catch-22 of everything about what they normally do and how they normally operate being taken away, and becoming an even more lonely experience than most other people that would have been working from home during the time of the pandemic, and the effect on people's mental health through losing DJ livelihoods. If you can imagine, that's how you earn your money. So if DJs can't do gigs, they can't pay the bills, and a lot of them were having to look at taking delivery driver jobs to be able to try and actually pay the rent. And it was a very kind of, it's a very fractionalizing way for their mental health of having to really reduce what they're doing to something completely different and having that financial insecurity at the same time.
And I think we saw that summed up. We were at the International Music Summit in Ibiza the other day, and we were speaking to a DJ called Ridney. He's a resident DJ at Cafe Mambo. And he was saying to us that he played this track and people were dancing to it and they really liked it and it sounded great through a big sound system. And he was like, oh yeah, this is what it's about again, right? Now I'm back out there playing this music, having only heard that music in a studio for so long, actually getting to play it back out in front of people and getting that crowd response, to your point, Sylvia, I think has been so important for a lot of artists.
So the pandemic definitely highlighted some of the issues that were already present regarding mental health in the electronic music industry, as I hear from you. If we want to talk, to take a more global view on the issues and not just about the pandemic, could you maybe get us through some of the issues that electronic music professionals, so artists, managers, promoters, face in their working environment that can have a negative impact on their mental health more globally?
I mean, obviously, can't speak for everybody, right? Everybody has their own personal journey, but I think that, as you said, the pandemic highlighted a lot of issues that were already there. I think it was kind of good in some ways for the industry to kind of reset, take a break, and maybe pivot in certain ways. I think people have become a little bit more empathetic. I hope that people continue to become more empathetic because it is obviously really important. I think that, sometimes we're in an industry where, your personal life can cross into your work life. It's a lot of fun. And I think that sometimes people can tend to overwork, and the stress levels, anxiety are super high. There's a lot of pressure, whether you're a manager, an agent, an assistant, an artist, production, you know what I mean? It's like there's always this kind of pressure to be on and to always be there for the scene, the artist, whoever it is, the company that you work for perhaps. And so I think that during this time, it was kind of good to be able to, I mean, for us at Beatport, we were really busy. It was go, 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 go. I think that in some ways my career excelled during this period, but I also worked a lot, you know? So is that really great in every way? No, because in some ways, maybe my mental health suffered. So it's all about balance, right? But I do think that there were certain issues such as, you know, overworking and pressure that are faced by a lot of the jobs that we have, because we always want to be there. We always want to be on. Sometimes we're going straight from, you know, offices out to like a nightclub, and we don't have time to even like recharge sometimes, right? So the pandemic was a good time to kind of step back and reevaluate certain situations, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say as well that, you know, just the actual process of working within the nighttime sector, working within club and festival environments is, you know, it's a way of life that lacks the routine that can be really important for helping to preserve mental health. It's very variable because you're doing a lot of travel, you're playing in lots of different venues with different setups. So there's a lot of change and a lot of adaptation that people have to have. There's a lot of pressure, lots of last minute things, lots of time pressures and lots of kind of stress pressures around that, coupled with the fact that you might not finish work until 6 or 7 in the morning. So also your own kind of circadian rhythms, your own kind of biorhythms in terms of sleep are completely shot, and things are quite irregular. And the more irregular things are, and the less that you can get into healthy routine, the worse that it is for you in terms of things like sleep or any sort of exercise or regular diet, you know, all of these boring things that people keep going on about, which are so fundamentally important for anyone's mental health. Our industry is almost the antithesis of what the playbook for successful mental health looks like. Then when you add into that the fact that in order to keep going, you know, a lot of people have to resort to taking kind of, you know, whether it's alcohol or drugs or amphetamines or whatever, just to kind of keep pushing through and keep operating. That's a whole other layer, which can be really unhelpful and negative for mental health. So most of the structures that we're working within are not ideal structures for human beings. You know, even just working through the night and sleeping through the day is not actually healthy for humans. We haven't evolved yet to be able to do that. We're supposed to go to sleep when the sun sets and get up when the sun rises. And our sector are doing the exact opposite. And it's an awful lot of fun. But in terms of, you know, doing that long term, that's going to be, you know, it's going to take its toll on mental health unless you put some strategies in place to counteract that.
There's a precarity and scarcity to our industry as well. So I think it's felt at all levels. If you're coming into the industry, like this precarious nature of being able to forge a career in the music industry, that's so competitive, it's so hard to actually make money in, is a driver for a lot of people to do these crazy hours sometimes whilst they're doing a full-time job or maybe multiple jobs. A lot of people are doing 2 or 3 jobs when they're coming up. And then when you get to the sort of upper and higher levels, then what we're encountering is this 24-hour on culture. You know, we'll go to conferences worldwide the whole time and speak to people, and there's almost like this badge of, historically there's been this badge of honor of like, yeah, you know, we are touring 365 days a year. You know, we are always on, because it's always summer somewhere, right? You know, there's always another festival or club to go to, so you can keep on touring perpetually. But there's this crazy idea that some people are aware of, and it's called a holiday. Yeah. So what we're starting to see now from more conscious management and these individuals and artists is to actually start building in time off. And there's some really great names out there where that they are taking a month off at a specific time in the year, and that month becomes sacrosanct, so that they will take that off. They look at their income over the course of the year, still doing really well, that's great, but it gives them that time off. They don't need to think about it, they're just going to be off over that period of time. And also the other benefit of that as well, if you're an artist, it pushes up your value. Oh, this artist is a bit more in demand, right? They're a bit harder to get hold of. Great. So actually, it's having a beneficial effect on your mental health and also potentially on your bottom line.
I was going to say also for people that are not artists, that are working more on the business side of things, definitely talk to your employers about mental health days. And if you don't have them, it's something you should bring up. I know that we have that. And I know a lot of companies are starting to shift and do that. Also going back to the artist, the way artists are touring now as well, we also do need to be careful and take care of artists, because there was this period of no touring, right? And now everyone's like, I got to get out there. I've got to make money. I've got to make up for the time, because I have to feed my family. I have to pay my bills. I have to prove myself, right? So this is actually a very crucial time. We really need to focus on solutions, resources, and support each other in this time.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned there, Tristan, about the precariousness of the business for artists, but actually for a lot of other workers within the DJ and nightlife and club and festival economy. A lot of people are actually freelancers, and a lot of companies are owned by individuals. And that precariousness of not knowing how successful you're going to be from month to month, in terms of the income that you're going to get, adds to the pressure of, I've got to accept a job, I've got to accept a booking, I've got to accept a gig. If it comes along, I have to take it. I might be brutally tired and I don't really have the energy for it, but I can't turn it down, because what if there isn't another one next week? Or what if what if the festival gets cancelled next month? I don't get my money, I don't get my fee. And the same goes for label owners and promoters and people that run their own businesses. They have the pressures of, I've got these people that we employ, and I've got the responsibility of making money for the company so that these people can get their wages. So there's also that whole economic precariousness around this sector, because the vast majority of people within it are not kind of employed on a monthly salary. They don't have a safety net. And during the pandemic in particular, it was literally, you don't get gigs, you haven't got a job at the moment, there is no help for you. There was no government kind of financial help for a lot of freelancers, because they fell through the cracks of the support schemes. So they were literally just left high and dry.
And just to say thank you to Beatport for the amazing work that they helped us with from an association point of view. For those people that Sylvia was talking about there, we were able to help 25 member companies. I think it was 62 people in total.
We did a lot of fundraising together, which was really amazing. And also with, having great partners as well. We were actually able to pay a lot of artists for live streams during this time. We secured a lot of brand deals. So we did pay a lot of artists and labels during this time, which I'm really proud of. But we also did a lot of incredible fundraising work together, right? And helped a lot of management companies or companies that were just falling through the cracks.
Can I quote a figure on that? So I mean, 90,000 sterling, 100,000 US was part of the donation that Beatport managed to raise for AFEM members. Companies that were thriving pre-pandemic, doing really well. These were great businesses. But again, to Sylvia's point, those tight margins that people often operate on, so slim, that they obviously got impacted. But thanks to the money that was
help everybody as well.
Exactly. But thanks to that funding that Reconnect raised, we were able to help those people.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was also thinking about social media as maybe a place where mental health can be at risk. We talked about precariousness and how some artists were struggling to get gigs through the pandemic. But I also assume that for artists for which everything's going well, it must be hard sometimes to admit the pressure of it and to admit that there's tiredness and like this pressure of not being able to complain because you're living the dream, kind of. Is that something also that you recognize as something to deal with?
I think generally for everybody, there is a pressure around social media platforms to present a particular kind of version of your life, to present something positive, even when the reality is different. So I think that's then magnified when you are in a career which a lot of people see as being very glamorous, and you shouldn't be complaining because you get to fly around the world and do gigs and play to thousands of people. That is going to potentially make it harder for people to kind of say, actually, do you know what? I'm really struggling. One of the good things that I saw during the pandemic was that people that had never admitted before that they had any mental health challenges started actually coming out and saying it and going, do you know what? I'm having a really, really bad time here. And that was across age groups of DJs. So there were people that have been in the scene for 25, 30 years. They were kind of older men, younger men, which is really important because men still don't talk about their mental health enough. I was actually, I was sad to see that people were struggling, but I was glad to see that people were talking about it and they weren't just pretending that everything was okay, because it wasn't. And it had actually spurred some people to then do something about it and start helping their fan base through their socials, trying to put in place things like podcasts to help to engage other people and say, do you know what? It's okay not to be okay. It's human. And, let's work together on it. Let's share good practices and support each other through it. So social media can be a really difficult thing to navigate for mental health, but it does give you a platform to actually be honest about it and engage people in the conversation. So it's kind of, the good side and the bad side together.
And just to add to that, I would say that it's a tool. Social media is a tool, and it should be treated from a mental health perspective like any other tool. For a lot of us, me included in the past, we are addicted to social media. How many people in this room will look at their phone within 15 minutes of waking up? I used to. Yeah. Right. So, and probably if we went half an hour, all of the hands in the room would go up, and then that would be iPods, computers, whatever. Like, disengage with tech. Like, if you want to get in control of your day and feel calm and equilibrium, we were talking about this last night because we're both guilty.
Listen to Uncle Tristan.
Well, but also that when you start to manage to do this, it's a relatively easy win. If you disengage from social media, and I did a podcast a few years back, and I was asked about this question. I was like, I do my social media on a Friday with my administration and invoices and stuff like that. I try and make it as boring as possible, right? I don't always succeed. I will still go onto it and do it because I'm like, just phone's out. So I've taken the phone. It's like a cigarette. I've taken the phone out of my pocket. I'm looking at it, right? This is really unhealthy behavior, okay? This is causing a massive spike in dopamine. You get the depletion on the other side, and you can often feel quite low. And then you're comparing yourself to people. You're in this constant loop of comparing. Say that, we do an awful lot of work, obviously outreach on social media to engage with people, because it's a big platform. But it is something that the more mindful that we can become of it and use it as a tool rather than it using us and us feeling addicted and compelled to it, the healthier the space we can find ourselves.
And artists and DJs as well. I mean, one thing that I would invite everybody to remember is that there are always going to be haters, there are always going to be trolls, and there are always going to be people that will come out of the woodwork if you post something and potentially say something negative. Ignore that, because there are just people out there that get their kicks from being arseholes on social media. They don't know you, you don't know them, and they're not important. Because, I know that can have a devastating effect on people's mental health, because they're so nervous about what they're saying and whether they're going to be criticized for something that they've done or something that they've said. These people are just out there, and really just try and disengage from that, because don't take it personally. You don't know them. They might not even exist. They might just be a bot. I mean, you don't even know if that's an actual human being. So try to kind of ride the wave of not stressing about the negative comments, not stressing about whether you've lost 5 followers because of you've said something or whatever it might be, because half of that stuff isn't real anyway. And don't, if you can try not to use your social media numbers or profile as a form of complete self-validation, if we can all remove ourselves from having that relationship with it and just kind of see it from what it is, like you say, it's a tool. Use it to promote stuff, use it to say good things to good people, and try not to kind of take it too seriously, because that's like the spiral down into hell if you take it too seriously.
Just really quickly, and a lot of people also do project, right? So if they're being negative, it's probably a lot of things that they're holding up inside and just need to kind of get out as well. A lot of things that I do find helpful on social media, and I definitely need to cut back, but sometimes I find a lot of great handles that have very positive affirmations, or there's a lot of positive things. And sometimes I'll look at a handle that I go to, every day almost. And I kind of need to look at that sometimes. And it definitely gives me that positive affirmation, or a positive, what am I trying to say? Basically a positive affirmation that helps me in that moment, So I feel like there are great resources online, great tips as well, that can help with anxiety, depression, and they're kind of in digestible formats, and you just kind of swipe. So there are definitely great parts to social media as well, but absolutely agree with these two that we shouldn't let it control us as well, And I'm less looking at people's now, and I'm more going to handles where I can learn, because there's a lot of great resources as well.
There's also a lot of great cat videos.
Yes, a lot of great memes.
That's
good for your mental health.
3-year-old kids dancing to drum and bass. You can find the sites that just post this stuff that you come across, and it's just gonna be there to make you smile.
Exactly.
So make sure your feed has got a decent balance of whatever that thing is that will make you smile, and just remind you about the fact that people can also be brilliantly silly and brilliantly funny and engaging, and they're just doing it to make you smile, and that's it. So there's always a kind of the positive side to add into your feed.
Yeah. So we can see that social media can be very insightful and both part of the problem, but also a solution. Are there other solutions that you would like to share with us regarding having a more sustainable career? I know that you have worked with mental health professionals for the reports, the Music Connects Us report, as well as the electronic music guide to better mental health from AFEM. Could you share with us some of the key elements from those reports?
I was going to say, definitely when it comes to something I'm definitely trying to work on, and things that I think are really important for mental health, are boundaries, whether that's professional or personal. I think that boundaries are extremely important when it comes to mental health, and, whether that's with friends or whether that's with your job, and knowing when to shut off, knowing that it's okay to say no and to not feel guilty about that, I think is really, really important. And oftentimes we're kind of made to feel guilty about that, but we need to kind of shift that norm a little bit. So I would say boundaries is definitely something that will help with longevity, in someone's career. And then
how do you push back on that?
Just in general with friends, my career, everything.
So you've got somebody senior telling you to do something, or you've got an amazing opportunity coming up.
It's recorded. I'm just kidding.
So how what would be your advice to people in able to maintain those boundaries? Yeah,
it's just simply can this wait until tomorrow? Can I get an extension for 2 or 3 days? Is this urgent? Let me evaluate what is the priority right now in my job. And I'm pretty sure this can wait a day or two, right? Unless it's an urgent press release I need to get out, or something that's super time sensitive. There's always a way to push something. Not curing cancer, not doing anything that's, someone's life depends on it. So just about, kind of trying to find a solution that's going to work for both parties. And I think that's been really, really helpful for me. Sometimes can have a bad habit and used to more of always being on and feeling bad about saying no. But I've learned that actually saying no gives you strength and power, and people respect that more. And it's good to set that boundary and make it very clear. And also you'll probably do a better job if you have a little bit more time in your mental capacity, whether you're a DJ producer or myself working in the industry. You'll probably do a better job if you're well rested, you've had time to really think about it, and you're not doing 10 million other things.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about your brain as you would think about another muscle in your body. So, if you go to the gym and you do a workout and it's fantastic for your muscles, you still need to actually give those muscles some downtime and some rest and recovery. Your brain is no different. And I think that sometimes we see our brains as a different part of ourselves, and we don't kind of see it as something that needs to be exercised and then needs to be refreshed with rest. So when I mentioned sleep earlier, I cannot stress enough, and I've literally only really kind of got this during lockdown, being somebody that would burn the midnight oil all the time, think that I could get away on 4 or 5 nights sleep constantly, which I could do up to a point. during the pandemic, I actually learned that if you go to bed at pretty much the same time, get up at pretty much the same time, and make sure that you have a decent amount of sleep. Decent could be, I mean, ideally like 7 to 8 hours. If you have to do a bit less, but really people that think that they can continue to run on 5 or 4 hours sleep, when you will pay for that in later life. Dementia in particular has been really strongly linked with sleep deprivation, like ongoing sleep deprivation. And I know that it's easy when you're young to go, yeah, blah, 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 old person talking to me about sleep. Trust me, I was that person. I am 54 now, and I wish I'd learned how to sleep. Like sleep hygiene when I was younger, because I certainly would be kind of more with it than I am now, and not as tired as I am now. But so honestly, if an older person tells you sleep well and drink loads of water, then just don't dismiss it, because there's something to this. Trust me.
It's the absolute cornerstone of mental health. Whatever other conditions that you might have, quality sleep is absolutely pivotal to being able to deal with those conditions, whatever that might be. And then establishing a routine is vital. And touching on your point there, Sylvia, and expanding to sort of say that if you can develop a routine at home, wherever you may be, and ideally something in the morning and something in the evening that you can go to, it's incredibly anchoring. So like if you're on tour, if you're going to conferences, whatever you might be doing, you're in a management role, you're supporting other people, to have that, and like practice mine in my hotel room this morning before coming out to this, and it doesn't take very long, but it really makes you feel calm. It makes you feel anchored, and it also enables, to Sylvia's point, to enable you to have better sleep. So those routines are really, really useful. Some physical exercise, some mental exercise, whether that's breath work or meditation, something that's going to bring you into your body. Our minds are racing the whole time. This is the point about social media. You get on social media, wake up. You've been awake for like minutes, and suddenly you've been deluged by this sort of like tsunami of information, rather than being in control of your thoughts, of your body, of your feeling. And if you can do that, then the chance of you leaning into other support in terms of drink, drugs, whatever else it might be, unhealthy behaviors, overeating, sex, whatever it could be, they diminish massively, because you'll be far more in control of your mind and body.
Yeah. I was just going to say, if because I know, meditation and mindfulness, I know that those are things that some people kind of shy away from, thinking, oh my God, it's just not for me. I can't meditate. I can't sit still enough, or blah, 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 blah. I was that person as well. But mindfulness or meditation can be as simple as just going for a walk for 10, 15 minutes and just focusing, just literally looking at what's around you and taking it in and being in that moment, rather than going around your business constantly thinking about the million things that you need to do, or the stuff that you've forgotten to do, or the stress. It's just, mindfulness is literally just being in the moment, and it can take 5 or 10 minutes a day. That's all. Just to do something, stroking a cat, I don't know, just something that is completely just that thing, and you're just in that thing, and your brain isn't thinking about anything else. It doesn't need to be kind of sitting down with finger symbols going or anything that's structured. It can just be really, really simple, but it makes such a difference to just have that little break.
Just important, if you're obviously going on tour to the States or Europe, just packing the cat in the bag. You need to get visas for this. You can't just
passport.
Passport. Yeah, so just.
I was going to say, and it's also okay to adjust your routine. I feel like I do constantly, and like I was just in California visiting my family, and my mom is so good at routine, and I hope that I can be as amazing as her one day, and she's so great about that, and I feel like I really needed it back in my life, and it was almost meant to be that I went on that trip, because it definitely changed my life again. And I feel, just like you said, going on a walk for 10 minutes, whatever it is, and you can adjust and adapt. Like I just recently added to my routine, like dancing every day for like 20 minutes before I start working, or just at lunch at home, to like my favorite mix of the day, because I'm just like, it makes me happy, so you can just adjust things and tweak, and it's always going to be a little bit difficult, but like they both said, routine is key, and when you don't have that, it really affects everything, to be honest.
Yeah, and for meditation and dancing as well, we can see that music also can be part of the solution.
Music is therapy.
Can help you to your mental health. So
music is the answer.
Yeah,
as therapy once said.
So there have been some reports as well from psychiatrists and like neurophysicists. Do you have maybe some insights on this from the report? So I'm thinking about meditation, breathing. How could we more mindfully use music for mental health?
I mean, I would say that one of the main stats from the report when we did the survey was that 70% of people were going to music as their go-to, which is really powerful. For me, it's always been my therapy. I've never had therapy. Would I ever do it? Sure, absolutely. I think it's great. Have people in my family? Absolutely. You know, since I was a teenager, I've heard things and seen things, and I think it's great to talk to people. But for me, music's always been like escapism. It's always probably why I work in it, but it's always been a way for me to kind of just block thoughts and just kind of think about where I want to go in life and positive things. But it's also, you know, can be very emotional as well. So it can be very nostalgic and can bring you back to a lot of moments, good and bad. So for me, it's very, very therapeutic in some sense, but it always helps me. And I've said that from such a young age, and I always remember music being in my life. So when I saw that stat, I was like, of course, you know, our audience is super engaged. They're either DJs, producers, or they're tastemakers, you know, and they are connecting, connecting with music. And during these difficult times, it's really helping them kind of overcome all these situations. So that stat I thought was very, very powerful.
Definitely. And I mean, I guess just to sort of add to Farah's point there, and you touched on therapy, some little bit off topic here, but a lot of people spend a huge amount of time going to the gym, doing physical exercise, maybe even getting a personal trainer. Doing therapy is something that I personally think we can all benefit from, because it's a way to disentangle those things that sit under the surface. Once we can know and understand our behaviors, then we can start to intervene. And when they come up, rather than reaching for that glass of wine or whatever else it might be, then we go, I can see that coming up. I see what that is. Then I'm able to intervene. It's not necessarily a quick process. I've spent 1,100 hours in psychotherapy over a long period of time doing that. I went through a phase of self-medication. So I've done all of that. I've worked in the industry. I've self-medicated. I've got away with it because I've been in music. I managed to build the career and all of the other stuff. And that's part of the issue as well, is that you can get away with it and you can still have a functioning career. But it's not sustainable. And so that when you have been through that process, if you do struggle with these things, whether it's anxiety or depression or whatever else it might be, once you can understand where those behaviors are originating, then you can start to intervene. You get the tools to be able to do it, rather than externalizing those tools too often being drink, drugs, sex, whatever else it could be, you know. And that's not necessarily something we talked about a huge amount in the report. I think we touched on it, but we didn't go into detail. But it's hugely powerful, and it's something that's worth everyone trying.
Yeah, and also, you know, music as therapy again is, I mean, it's an obvious thing. If you're into music, if you make it, if you play it, you will have your thing, you will have your genre, whatever it is that's like your go-to. The thing that you will listen to when you're going through a really hard time in your life, it becomes your anchor. So that becomes your form of therapy. Everyone has a different genre that does that. You know, I love all sorts of genres of music, but my go-to, the music that saves my life, is drum and bass. So whenever I need to kind of get through something, that's the go-to. And you can find a particular track that resonates, or a particular thing, and whether you just sit and absorb it, whether you get up and dance to it, whether you cry to it, whether you scream to it, whatever it is, that's, you know, if you're into music, you're going to have a version of that. There's going to be something that you can anchor yourself with. Just stick it on really loud and play as much of it as you need until you feel better. There's and that's kind of easy and cheap. And yeah, I'd say that's an obvious answer for me.
Yeah, definitely. So we can have an overview of some tools to improve the sustainability of one's own career. So routine, as well as good sleep, mindful use of social media, and therapy.
Boundaries.
work boundaries, definitely. But what about working together? Because a huge part of our jobs are about all this social part. Do you have some tools, some ideas as how to better work together, especially in the light of the pandemic? How can we look forward now?
I mean, just really simply checking in with each other. Dead simple. Just actually asking somebody, how are you? We're always like, hey, how are you? You know, and yeah, I'm fine. But actually saying, how are you? No, really, how are things? Making it clear to that person that you're present for them and you're going to provide them a space to listen. We're all very good at talking. We've all got that next thing in our mind that we want to tell the other person, to, you know, like, and just being able to observe that thinking mind for a minute and just be there for someone else, to ask them that sincere question, to let people know that there are people that they can turn to in our community, whether that's your colleague or whoever it might be. And the other side, we've spoken quite a lot about artists. There's obviously a huge number of people. I'm sure a lot of you guys in this room are in these sorts of roles where, you know, you are supporting people. You're working in A&R, you're publishing, backroom, you know, you're not on a main stage playing to thousands of people. And actually for management, we often see the management are taking a huge amount of pressure and responsibility for looking after people, but there's not necessarily the support for them as well. So again, all the way up and down, what does a perfect industry look like? There's a million things, but one aspect to it might be this idea that whether you're a main stage artist or you're the intern, everybody's constantly checking up and down, just asking how each other are in a sincere way, and then allowing that person time to respond. And I think that can be hugely helpful.
Definitely. I mean, collaboration and empathy go an awfully long way. And I think sometimes within our industry in particular, it's been quite easy for people to kind of fall into factions and blame each other for things or be very competitive about things. You know, there is a nature of competition within our sector. And I think one thing that we can learn, having gone through the pandemic, is that actually, if you work together with people, if you try and understand like what it's like being in somebody else's shoes, and understand that, you know, if you feel someone's being a bit of an arsehole, there may actually be a reason. They may be struggling with their mental health. They may have a real issue going on that is, you know, it's changing their behavior and making them say what they're saying or act in a certain way. It's that there's never any harm in kind of saying, look, is everything all right? Because you seem a bit stressed or a bit wound up, or this doesn't seem like you. Don't just assume that someone is being an arsehole, because sometimes that arsehole is somebody that's really struggling with mental health. If you check in on them and they're like, oh, right, actually, yeah, I want to talk about it, great. If they don't want to talk about it, at least you've reached out and connected with them. And that can be really valuable, because some people still find it difficult to be able to come out themselves and say, I'm in a really bad place right now. But if you ask the question, that might just open up that conversation. And also one thing now, coming out of the pandemic, we can actually be in rooms together in real life. And there's no substitute for that in terms of human beings. We are pack animals. We are social beings. We like being around other people. We like the sensation, you know, giving someone a hug. We like touch. We like smell. We like all of these things that we missed out on for 2 years because everything was through a screen. So let's make sure that we kind of recondition ourselves back into actually checking up and meeting with people in real life, and not just kind of doing another email exchange or whatever else, because that interaction, that's what a load of people really missed during the pandemic, and that's what made a lot of people's mental health suffer. We were just missing that one-to-one connection with people in the same room.
Yeah, definitely. On that part of interaction, I have seen that you advocate for all businesses to have at least one mental health professional, first aid trained member of staff, like everybody already does for physical health. So could you tell us a bit why AFEM has had this position and how it could help having a more sustainable career for everyone?
So there's an organisation called the MHFA, Mental Health First Aid. It was founded in Australia about 21 years ago now. It's a global organisation. You can find it across Europe, Germany, through to the States, UK. It's a short 2-day course and very easy to understand, walks you through all of the key things that you need to know around mental health. So you can actually help people if they come to you. It means that if you've got a point person within an office that's done this, like you would have like a regular first aid training person, you know, somebody's broken a finger or whatever, you know, there's somebody you can go to. It's the same idea as that. It does two main things. One, it provides somebody with the skills to be able to do that sort of thing safely. And then the other, it also provokes a very positive conversation within the organization. So that you then have people talking about, oh, I'm up for doing that, or like, what's that about? Or, oh, we're in an organization where it's cool and fine and acceptable to talk about mental health. So it's a very positive scheme, and it's relatively low cost as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to echo that, so quick question to the room. Has anybody here been in a work environment and actually seen somebody have a nervous breakdown in front of them? So remember how fucking scary that was? And if you think about, were you in a position to really know what to do to help them, to understand what sort of help they needed, to signpost them, to look after them, to just know what was going on? I didn't the first time that ever happened, and nobody else did as well. Mental health training wasn't a thing then. If they'd broken their leg at work, we would have known exactly what to do. But their mind was broken. And it was really, really terrifying. And I don't think anybody in any sector would want anyone to have to going through the breakdown or being the person on the other side that is just immobile with, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help. So having at least somebody that understands that and how to help that person then, and most importantly, how to show the signs of when somebody is getting to that point so that you can help prevent it, or you can help prevent somebody committing suicide because you ask the right questions and then do the right thing. Sorry, TJ, I love you. But that's, just having people around that can try and be there to help prevent the crisis from happening in the first place. That's why it's so important. And, a broken leg, a broken brain, they should be seen as the same thing. And the help should be there because it's so, so important that we're there for each other. So that's what this mental health first aid training can do. And if some companies, if you work for a place that's like, we can't afford to do that, then ask them to look at ways that they can get funding from an external party or a partner or somebody that they work with. It is really low cost, and there's no excuse for not getting this in place and making sure that every company and every organisation has at least one person that can do this.
And ask them as well for the justification if there is a cost issue. Oh, sorry, do we have a physical first aid trained person? Of course we do. How did that happen? How was that paid for, right? So it's the same thing. And the other key thing about it is that it enables you as an individual to have a much better understanding. So you learn a huge amount about these things, and you can see them coming up in yourself and be far better equipped to deal with them when they do.
So we're kind of coming to the end of this talk. Thank you so much for all this very insightful information. Are there some other initiatives that you would recommend from Beatport, from AFEM, or from others that we could look into after this conference?
I think, it would be great whenever this is posted, this video, we can share the Music Connects Us report, the guide that you did. There's great experts that we worked with that I feel like I learned so much from all the time, like Tom Middleton, Stuart Sonderman, Ari from Origami. So we can pop in their links there. But these people are incredible, working in, breath work, meditation, and the guide itself we try to make it fun, digestible, colorful, interesting, relatable, so that people could really get a lot out of that. I think, if you're working in companies, just like they said, bring up the mental health, first aid mental health training. I've been in the industry 14 years now, and I'm so happy to see, and I've worked with artists like Avicii, Luciano, who have in my past careers, who have obviously had mental health, who had mental health issues and are no longer here. But I wish that these conversations could have been had 14 years ago when I was coming up. I struggled with, many things I couldn't talk about. And it just was not something you could talk about in high profile agencies or companies. People they didn't care about your mental health. If you didn't want to do your job, there's like 1,000 people that want your job. So to be able to have these conversations is so important. I say that mental health is literally an everyday conversation. It should be discussed all the time. And, I know that we're going to do more at Beatport. We're going to do more through our editorial, live streaming, social media. We're always brainstorming in ways in which we can do things together. So you'll definitely see more coming from us. But yeah, we'll definitely share all the links on the YouTube. And I just think, I'm super happy that the conversation is constantly happening, constantly evolving so that we destigmatize it even more. It's definitely okay for people to talk about it now, but there's still a lot of people that struggle. So going back to also just check in with your friends, check in with people, simply ask them how they're doing as well. And I think that's really powerful and can really help. Just have more empathy and just always know that you don't know what people are going through. You don't know what happened to them in the day, the night before, what's going on in their life, right? Because we're also so much more than just what we put out there professionally. So yeah, those are also, I guess I threw in some tips as well there and advice.
I was just going to mention the neurodiversity survey as well, and that might sound like a slight tangent, but I think a lot of people still don't realize within our sector actually what neurodiversity is, what the conditions are, what that actually means for the people that have them, but actually the link between some neurodiverse conditions and anxiety and depression. So it's, there are things like, ADHD, ASD, other neurodiverse conditions can actually mean that the person that has them has the challenges that will actually make them struggle and make them have struggle with their mental health and anxiety. It's something that a lot of people don't know enough about, but there's actually deemed to be quite a high percentage of people in the creative industries that have a neurodiverse condition. We've just launched a survey. Tristan worked really hard on that. We're going to have a proper research into the results of that survey so that we can get a better understanding of how many people across the industry may be neurodiverse, but also how many people that don't know about neurodiversity actually understand what it is or how to support people that do. So it's related to mental health. We'll share the link for that. Be fantastic if you want to take part, or just share it with your networks to take part, so that we can get as broad a picture as possible of how this affects our industry and then how we can all collectively support. And just for one very quick final point is that please find us on our, social media. We're online. Our emails are out there. You can find us through our organisations. But please, just if you want to reach out and connect, you've got any questions, or people within your circle that might benefit from help and support, then please do reach out and let us know. I was going to say AFEM do an incredible job in our industry. They really, really, really do. Cannot thank them enough. And we have a mental health working group that includes a lot of people. There are some people in the room that are in it. So we welcome people to join. And that's how a lot of the surveys and the reports, that's how these things are birthed, because we talk and we collaborate together, and we always welcome new people, new ideas. And I encourage you, there's a lot of resources in that group, and that group has been instrumental in the work that Beatport has done as well. So thank you. Thank you, Farah. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for this very interesting and important talk. I think that we all got some very nice key takeaways from this panel. I'm going to open kind of the floor for some questions. Maybe we have like 2 or 3 questions that we can take. So if there's anyone that wants to ask something, that's the moment. Yeah.
So you mentioned having a mental health person within organizations, but you also said a lot of us are freelancers and we don't have organizations. Where can a freelancer or a solo artist, someone who is sort of like out there on their own in the world, where can they turn to if they need support?
There are a number of mental health organizations, whether they're charity organizations that are global, and then there are other ones that are national. They will online be able to signpost a lot of different resources, whether it's resources in terms of talking to a human being or whether it's kind of written resources. So if you Google for the mental health kind of organization, professional organizations and charities in your territories, you'll be able to find a lot of information. So there's in the UK, there is the Mind charity, which is the big mental health charity. Also, Help Musicians have an offshoot called Music Minds Matter, which is specifically looking at mental health for people working in the music industry, including freelancers, consultants, individuals. So there is a lot of resource and a lot of help out there, and there can be very low cost or free resources that you can find as well.
And further to the lovely Antipodean part of the world, our Australian friends came up with MHFA. So like it's been going obviously for 21 years. They're based there, fully international organisation. Even if you don't want to do the course, then they can certainly signpost you internationally to a lot of great places and resources that can be helpful.
I have to say that Berlin is lacking a bit. We've been doing some research on this recently, a friend and I. There is a lack of mental health support for music artists in Berlin. So she's a superstar. This person that I know, she's unbelievable, and she's great at researching and doing a lot of social work. So hopefully, I'm going to be able to, outside of my work of Beatport, but also as part of my work, I want to try to create something that is going to offer more support. So we're actually both working on this right now. But we did a bit of research and there really was not that much here. There's great support in the UK, US, I'm not so familiar. You probably know more. But yeah, I was surprised. Not a lot of support here. So that was actually something I was going to bring up to you.
Well, I mean,
we definitely need more in Berlin.
Yeah, I mean, Help Musicians are a UK organisation, but obviously their website is accessible globally. So helpmusicians.org. And that would then you'd be able to kind of tap into what the resources that are on their website, which can be there are online resources as well as sort of in-person ones. So that's a starting point. Yep. But yeah, I think potentially for us to look at actually coming up and signposting a lot of organisations in different territories would be a good next step for us.
We have actually got quite a few listed on the AFEM website. So if you go on to AFEM, Association for Electronic Music, .net, then you can see under our health working group a whole load of different lists of resources, many of which are international, and hopefully they can be helpful.
Are there any other questions? Yes.
Do you actually have jobs intern for like students?
At AFEM? We don't at the moment, but if you want to reach out and send me your CV, so it's my name Tristan at afemorg.net.
Well, I've got a card with Tristan's email address. So I mean, basically,
my boss is more organised than I am. Basically,
I'm quite organised for someone with ADHD. I'm quite organised. But yeah, I mean, in answer to your question, we don't have internships per se, but we are a not-for-profit trade body, so we would always love to hear from people that may feel like there's an opportunity to be able to volunteer or interact with us. We'll have a look at the CV, and then there may be something that comes up that we could talk to you about. So we're always open to hear from
inclusive
people.
Organization.
Okay, so one last question in the back. Yeah.
I had more of a comment of something that's helped me over the last couple of years. So having a background in medicine was kind of forced to learn this topic, especially over the last 2 years. And something that's really helped me learn how to offset these huge ups and downs of the night lifestyle or the long burnout times was just researching and knowing how our bodies work and how the mechanisms behind the behavior tools that you guys mentioned. And like when to do life in this 24-hour period or why routine as far as waking up and going to bed, why that's so important. And all these everyday tools that we can use, but knowing the mechanism behind it, why it works, really helped me adhere to those behavioral tools. And it taught me how to be actually in control of our dopamine and serotonin systems instead of reacting to it. Like most of our night lifestyles are reactive instead of being in control and learning how to run your system. So, there's numerous tools on YouTube, like the Huberman Lab podcast is a good one. Just search dopamine mechanism, neuroscience, you're going to find the whys alongside the what.
Couldn't agree more.
Very positive history on that. So thing called the superchiasmatic nucleus, which is the bit inside your brain, which we often relate to circadian rhythm, body clock. That's the part of us which enables us to know light and dark, morning and evening. If you get exposure, so if we all get light exposure before 9 a.m. in the morning, crucial time is when the sun comes up, but before 9 a.m., that's going to set your body clock. It's going to help set your body clock for the day. You're getting lots of blue light exposure, high number of lumens, basically about over even like 33,000 lumens. Even on a cloudy day, it's weird. Like, so long as you're outside, not through glass, you'll get that. That's going to be hugely powerful to helping to set your body clock. Same in the evening. Go outside. Be in an office all day. Be in the studio. Be producing. Get outside. Get daylight. And that red light, the red light spectrums that we're getting in the evening, that's going to be doing the same thing. And if you can keep on doing that, along with a set diet and routine, we spoke about routine earlier, even when you're traveling, you can lean back into those things to help reset your body clock when you've been traveling, especially to help combat jet lag. And I couldn't agree more. Huberman Lab podcast is one of the best.
And you mentioned the magic word for me, which is neuroscience. For somebody that's been into music for as long as I have, discovering, reading about the brain and how the brain works and as an organism and the mechanics of it, and understanding the cause and effect of certain things that you do or don't do, or certain things that you take or don't take, is absolutely fascinating, but also so super helpful for making you kind of have that wake-up call of, all right, this thing that I've been doing is actually counterproductive for the way my brain is going to work. So I can fix that. If you understand, it's like a car engine. If you understand how it works, you can fix it yourself, right? So if anyone's interested in reading neuroscience books, it sounds really heavy, but it's really not. There's so much out there that is written in such a way, or podcasts that are in such a way that you can just understand it without having to be a scientist. But it's been game changing for me, for my mental health, and just generally the way that my brain operates. So yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Well, looking into neuroscience, that's going to be a very nice last point. I thank you so much for your presence here and for all these insightful things that you said. I think that we all have some things to carry outside of this room. Thank you as well for your questions and for being here. And looking forward to meeting you all outside of this. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeanne.
Thank you.